You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder of We Deepen Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional coach supporting people who want to put a little skip into the dating journey or activate it as a spiritual journey. Those who want to deepen connection with a partner, a significant other, or get out and make new friends. Interestingly enough, I have been talking about matchmaking on the past few episodes, and I'm going to get into that. We're going to get into it more deeply today because I have a special guest, someone who's on the inside of We Deepen since September of 2021 and also has been around. He has been flying around the We Deepen ecosystem inside of it for years prior to coming in on the inside. So we're going to dive into the matchmaking, the relationship coaching, what's happening with We Deepen today on this episode. Now, if you do enjoy Deepen with Christina, please follow, like, subscribe, leave a comment, rate this podcast. Depending on the platform, you can see, on Spotify, if you're listening there, you'll follow and then you can rate it with a number of stars. And if you're listening in Apple, you can leave a comment. And this is super supportive. It helps more people find this podcast. Also, when you enjoy episodes, share them with friends. Let's give other people access to all the types of social and transformational experiences that help people have more meaningful, loving relationships so we can all do this together. Also, check out, there's 2 other podcasts on the We Deepen Network. Legends. Dr. Nikki has renamed her podcast from Elevate to Legendary to Legends. So check that one out. And also Political Hope, Indy Rashi's Political Hope has, it's skyrocketed. He had Charles Eisenstein on a recent episode, and Charles wrote an article about it. If you don't know who Charles is, he is one of my favorite political philosophers. He published an article that highlights the podcast episode where he vulnerably spoke about being attacked and for his advocacy in the world and how he is planning to navigate his career after, those hurt people. We do it to each other. And if you have been a public figure yourself and you've put yourself out there, I imagine, and if you have viewpoints, because the environment, this is why We Deepen exists, because the environment out there, if you're not in your tribe, if you haven't found your people, it can be challenging. And the thing is, the world needs to hear your viewpoints. We want to hear what's going on inside of that heart of yours, even if you're not sure if it's accurate or correct. Speak your truth, share, because that's how we progress. And our thoughts, just spread to one another. We grow in reflection, in community. So today, Matthew, welcome to your first episode of Deepen with Christina.
Thank you. This is very exciting.
Very excited to have you. So Matthew has been working as the Chief Operating Officer of We Deepen since September. We reconnected at the Romance Dojo, which was one of the first We Deepen branded experiences that we brought back out into the world following COVID in the Topanga area in the summer of 2021. And Matthew was there. And at the end of that experience, I had said, hey, we're growing. We're seeking support. If anybody knows how to help us with some tech stuff. And Matthew, you raised your hand and said, I'm in. Let's talk. And that's where this new chapter of your journey with We Deepen began.
Absolutely. That Romance Dojo was such an amazing event for me. So just having the opportunity to give back in any way has been exciting. And of course, I've followed you and known you for years and seen your work for years and seen your energy and community for years. So, I mean, what a gift it was that you asked that question at that moment, right? And gave me an opportunity to find a way to give you leverage and to help you help more people the way you do.
Thank you. And what was it that really drew you into We Deepen?
So many things. I've seen you, right, and experienced you and the people around you in your community and your tribe for a number of years, right, at different kinds of events. And and I have always just really had a pleasure of witnessing you and your people in just this beautiful, like, kindness and connection and openness and a desire to be of service. And so as I watched you build We Deepen, and it was building up really beautifully, before COVID and before everything in terms of in-person events had shut down for a little bit, I watched that trajectory. I watched that. And it was just one of those things that I was really grateful for, mainly around LA. What you were doing in the community was really noteworthy, right? It was really noteworthy. And then we all sort of went into our little holes for a little bit, we kind of had to. And then we popped out and we so craved connection, so needed it, right? And, in a year of Zoom meetings, was better than nothing. But it was so exciting to see that you were doing an event, right? I was so happy to be on your mailing list, right? And to see Romance Dojo. Oh my God, this is it. Yes, I'm going to Topanga. I'm going to meet some people. And it was incredible. So it's that kind of energy that's always drawn me to We Deepen. And I was so happy to see you building the business again,
Now, when you say, and thank you for all of that, it's, we grow in reflection to each other, and your words are encouraging. Your energy has been encouraging since you've started sharing it with us more deeply. When you said your people, it's interesting when you say your people, I'm like, they're not my people. they're God's people. However, can you speak to the types of people that you meet through the We Deepen network? And then after you speak to those types of people, I would also love for you to give listeners kind of like who you are as a human being, so they understand the voice behind this, like your makeup as a being, where Matthew is right now in this point in time.
Oh, it's all a process. It's all work in progress. Your people? Yeah, I get you. You're not a guru, right? You're not gathering people in front of you as you sit on the stage. No, of course. But what I mean by that is let's talk very specifically. In LA, around LA, I have been very, very happy to have found a community and overlapping communities of really thoughtful, kind people. And so describing what I mean when I say your people, right? Your community. It's my community also, right? It's a lot of people. But sort of how I would describe this and why I'm sort of, summarizing it into like Christina's tribe, right? Okay, so I have witnessed events and people sharing and people being open to connection that is really uplifting. It's really uplifting and really nourishing, right? I'm kind of a introvert, extrovert, or an extrovert, introvert, but I oscillate, right? And so sometimes it's very hard for me to go to events and to talk to people and to get to know people and to get out of the house and get out of my shell, right? And what's really been beautiful about the different kinds of events that you and I have been part of is this really gentle kindness that comes with people being very open and accepting, very inclusive, and also vulnerable, right? People open up in the community that that I guess I'm sort of referencing here. People open up and they share and they talk about their struggles and their challenges, right? Everybody a lot of people have sort of a cynical view of towns like LA. Oh, people there are so shallow and so hard to get to know. It's not been my experience at all, right? And it's in part because of all these amazing people you included that sort of model out every day. They model out vulnerability and courage and an acceptance that we're all in growth, right? That all the challenges are opportunities.
Yes. And I'll add to that too is the people that are within the ecosystem and because not necessarily the experiences that are listed on wedeepen.com aren't, for the most part, majority of them aren't created by me. They are curated. I spot them and say, oh, that facilitator is amazing. And that guide is such an entertainer.
Yeah.
And so we're essentially bringing the best brands, and those business owners, what I'll say, some of them actually are hesitant to even see themselves as business owners, but they eventually grow into that. Yadi Iksa of Unleashed being one of them. Like, I didn't set out to build a business, and then for her own survival, it becomes a business. But those people who are essentially leading the workshops are also participants at the workshops.
Right.
And they are most likely, as you speak to the vulnerability of them, they're fully expressed beings. And what I mean by that is that they're not usually inhibited. They're seeking alternative places to socialize rather than just bars and restaurants. It's not that these people won't go to a bar and restaurant, but they are essentially coming out of that and they're willing to be silly and dance, make fun of themselves. And not take, because it's not just that we sit around and cry in tears. It's more of like laughs and play and having the willingness to get up and freestyle rap, even though you may not be a musician.
Yes.
So it's courage. It's a lot of people with grit and courage. And I think sometimes there's also a misconception of the people who are in the community that it's a bunch of hippies. Sure. There's some type of hippies or freeloaders at times of who are do these people even work? Some of them have been successful or have built careers that enable them to work just a few hours a week. Some of them have been on the grit before in the past. Some people are still on the grit, but it's also because we bridged together. I lived in New York City for 12 years. I worked in the corporate realm. I then moved out to LA. Now I'm in Austin. We have ties to Miami and Maryland. I just spent a few years in Maryland. So there's these also weaving together of people who are seeking. They're seekers. They're essentially seeking, like, there must be more to this world than just waking up every day and, going and working inside of a box and then finding this person to marry me, and that's my life. Like, there must be more to this.
Yes.
And I'll speak to also in the age range, because I think demographics are of interest, and especially because as we'll go into, because this is, I brought up before we started recording this podcast, another podcast called How I Built This. And it's sort of like, as you listen to Deepen with Christina, you are in a continuation of process of how they built this.
Yeah.
Because you're figuring it out with us. We have a vision of more meaningful, loving relationships, of spreading love into the world. And there's no better way to be able to do that than to go to spaces where you can actually experience and feel love and connection. And you eradicate the loneliness that we all feel sometimes deep down in our hearts and the isolation. And you can come into collaboration with people that you just won't meet sitting in your house.
Yeah.
So give me a little bit, give our listeners a little bit of makeup of you personally, Matthew.
Oh my goodness. Me personally. Well, first and foremost, and the most important thing to me is I'm a dad, right? I have two delicious little humans that I'm in charge of and have to take good care of, and they take really, really good care of me. I've got a little boy and a little girl. And how they take care of me, oh man, and that goes to me and my journey and my growth, is just witnessing the kind of joy and silliness, like you were talking about, and willingness to be ridiculous, and desire to move across a 10-foot room by skipping instead of walking slowly. I observe this in them, and they have taught me to what I call rechild myself. Right? Just constantly experience the practice of letting go of all the stories we've accumulated, all the ways we're supposed to behave, and experience like the kind of complete boundless joy that children have. So I get to do that almost every day. I'm in co-parenting. I have them half the time. I wish I could do that every day because it's such a gift. And they're so wonderful. But so that's a big part of me. And that goes to like my journey and my growth is like, I describe myself as a serious guy who's learned to not take himself too seriously, right? And open that up and soften around cynicism, soften around desire to be liked, soften around desire and need to be accepted by others and all that, right? So that's a big part of who I am. My work as and around entrepreneurs is a big part of who I am. My passion is in using my odd skill set to give leverage to really good ideas that can help impact people's lives, right? And so, of course, that's why I was attracted to an opportunity to help you. And just a side note on that, to go back to what you were saying before, one of the things I really loved about what you were doing with We Deepen is not only creating events like Romance Dojo, but We Deepen to a great extent is all about finding and giving leverage to amazing guides who are helping people, right? Leverage upon leverage, right? We build a little tech system over here to make things go better, but it gives you, the founder, leverage, which in turn gives them leverage to reach more people. And I always loved that was a key part of your vision. And so, I mean, as it relates to your question, that's a key part of my like values and passion too, is helping amazing people help more people,
And prior to us meeting, you had decided to take a year to focus on being a father and not work, right? You wanted, the goal is to be a full-time father, put work aside, and then I sort of lured you outside to take on new projects and with We Deepen. So thank you for that. And also too, you were married once before. You're currently, you consider yourself currently a single man?
I am. I'm not married. I can tell you that. Happily. Yeah.
Can we get a little personal and we talk a little bit about our dating journeys?
Of course.
So you and I consider myself monogamous. Now, of course, when I'm dating in the dating phase of I think there's like a little bit of polyamory that just comes along with dating because you haven't entered a committed relationship. Although I do believe that anytime I begin a conversation with a new person, I've entered a relationship with them. Although it might not be a committed relationship, but the relationship has begun.
Of course.
However, you sort of have taken a different route in the sense that you, after have been married for quite a number of years and in a monogamous relationship,
yes,
you're in a place in your life where you're more curious and staying open to the idea of polyamory.
Well, yes and no. So it's funny, like you say, when people are dating, it really is polyamory. it's a label, right? It's a label, and most people would say, "Oh no, I'm not poly. I'm just meeting new people and dating." Right? So we have to be careful about labels. They can mean different things to different people, right? And they really only have value to us as frameworks of understanding where we're going and frameworks for communicating our intention to others if we have an understanding of what they mean, right? So yeah, so my journey has been, so I was in a 13-year relationship, married for 10 years. You know, a really wonderful, amazing woman who's an incredible mother to my children. And we weren't right for each other. We weren't right for each other in a lot of ways. And there was amazing, incredibly expansive, joyful experiences we had together. And there was a lot of stuff that was really hard, right? There was a lot of stuff that was really hard. And at the core of that, I think, was that we were just very different people, right? And our ways of being and going about things and solving problems were just different, right? So we worked on it. We worked on it. And yes, I was monogamous. And yes, even when I felt like in despair over the relationship, even when I felt very, very alone and lonely, it was monogamous and it stayed that way. So it ended in a very non-dramatic kind of conscious uncoupling kind of way. She and I worked on the relationship for years, right? You know, she, to her credit, she met me in couples counseling and workshops and all sorts of things for years. And we worked on it. We tried to make it work. And in the end, we both sort of looked at each other right in the middle of a therapy session. And she just said to me, you know, I don't know if we need to keep trying to do this. And I just sort of, my shoulders just dropped and I felt like this amazing weight off. I was like, you know, you're right. We don't. It's okay. It's okay. Right. And so, yeah, so, you know, conscious uncoupling and, you know, mediated non-contentious divorce led to a transition to a co-parenting relationship, right? Which is what we're in now. And I got to transition my life and how I relate to others. And of course, it's a process. There was some healing. There was some liminal space. I had to go, you know, internal for a while. And then I stepped out and started trying to date. And I kind of messed things up a couple of times and learned some good lessons. Learned about myself, learned about communication, learned about how to create a container out of respect for others, you know. And I'm still learning. And it's been 4 years. So,
can you share with us specifically about a mess up that you had, or what you consider a quote unquote mess up?
Absolutely, I can. And this will kind of segue into a conversation of what is ethical non-monogamy, right? And what's ethical mean in that phrase, right? So how did I mess up? Like, I started like meeting people and dating. This is what we do. I'm excited to meet new people. I set my intentions. I get on my dating apps and I meet some people and I have some dates and they're incredible. They're wonderful. You know, I met some really amazing, wonderful women. And so at one point I was starting to get to know and deepen relationships with two women. And we hadn't had any conversations around what are we doing here. It just didn't, I think, feel appropriate yet for any of us, right? And yet it turned out that they knew each other. Well, they had a common friend, and I was having this really beautiful, like, deep connection with both of them because they're incredible people, and I was so grateful to spend time with them. And I lean in and connect with people, and so we had an emotional intimacy in both cases that felt really nice. And it turns out they both went and shared their experience with the common friend separately. And the common friend put it together.
Oh dear.
The common friend put it together. Wait, he's how old? He lives in Malibu. He has how many kids? Wait a minute. Same guy. Connect the dots. And yes, you know, none of us felt we were in a monogamous relationship, but that doesn't mean it didn't hurt, right? Because we hadn't really been having really open and mutually respectful and transparent conversations, and in both cases, of course, as emotional intimacy deepens and physical intimacy deepens, expectations, desires, and intentions can evolve, right? And they're rarely perfectly in sync between two people, right? We all have our desires. We start to experience the relation with that person a little bit differently. And so it was just clumsy. It was clumsy and hurtful. And the lesson I got out of that was, okay, sure, I'm not beating myself up over it, but what can I do to grow in this? What can I do to grow and show up in a way that's more mature and more in integrity? And the big lesson I got out of that was I need to be very, very clear and open and transparent about what my intentions are, and then check in on that conversation as frequently as seems appropriate. Which, in fact, it's usually better to have more frequency than you think you need, right? So that took me into like learning and reading and trying to figure out. Somebody introduced me with the topic of ethical non-monogamy, E&M. I'm like, what's that? Right? And I did a bunch of reading. Anyway, I'll stop there. I can dive into that more. But do you have any questions about?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. And I can imagine, I can see how people would end up in that situation very easily. I imagine there's someone listening be like, that's happened to me. And I appreciate too of how you have taken that lesson and have reflected on it and like, how could I do better next time? Now, as being I resonate very much with being a woman and being in my feminine when I'm dating. Mm-hmm. And I've been studying dating and relationships for nearly a decade and have, learning from some of the bigger names like Esther Perel and Brene Brown and Gay and Katie Hendrick. And some of them will go into the masculine and feminine aspects of humans. However, if you go on to, some of the work by Alison Armstrong or Pat Allen, who focuses on the differences in man and woman and how those differences can be navigated within relationship. And so there's times where me personally, because I'm currently single at the moment. And there's times when in the newer journey of dating that for the most part in the beginning, I'm in observation. I'm observing behavior and how I feel with this other person. And there's times I don't want to necessarily come across as too intrusive and asking lots of questions. And it's just when you say, like, I've learned that it's best to talk about it as much as possible. However, when you're in the dating journey, sometimes we think, and I had to learn my own lessons as well. There was a relationship that I had about 5-6 years ago or so when I had this inkling that this human being had a child that he hadn't told me about. And instead of asking him directly, because I felt that would have been invasive for somebody who didn't tell me he had a child, like what's happening there. And so instead of asking him directly, I went and I searched the internet to find my answer because I didn't want to be intrusive. And I think sometimes that we are withholding our questions because, and for the most part, sometimes we realize they're ridiculous. Like a girlfriend of mine went out with a man recently and it was their first date, but they had known each other for some time. He's a high profile person. And so she was feeling a bit intimidated in the dating journey. And he then was leaving to go on a vacation. And she was like, he's probably going on a vacation with some other woman. And I'm like, that's an assumption that you're making. Where's that assumption coming from? Did you ask him? No, I'm not asking him that.
Yeah.
So for being somebody who I look at as very much in his masculine, and I'd imagine so in the dating journey as well, Do you ever find that women ask too many questions, or would you like them to ask more questions?
That's a great question.
And of course, this is personal. I'm not asking you to speak for all of mankind, but for you personally, Matthew.
Right, or womankind. You know, everybody's got their own needs. And so, look, I think I can only tell you from my experience, right? And I've learned and I've changed and I've evolved my way of being that leads to different kinds of experiences. So we're always optimizing, right? And I've got a lot of learning ahead of me. I don't know what it is yet, though, but I'm sure it's going to be really fun. But what I've learned so far about this particular thing is that, as a general rule, it's best to talk about stuff, right? And it's best to be inquisitive and curious, and speak your curiosity and speak your truth. As often as possible, man and woman in this, right? When I say you, everybody, right? And, you know, and there's two sides of this, right? One is speaking your truth and speaking your questions, and the other is doing what you can to create a safe container for the other to do that, right? So I answer any and all questions, and I also, when I'm getting to know somebody, right? You know, first dates are always lots of questions, right? Right? Lots of questions. And it's great. I don't mind it one bit. I think it's amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, I try to create a container by like explicitly saying, I prefer communication. I prefer hearing and doing my best to understand your needs, desires, fears, boundaries, everything. But then I also say, keep in mind, I will never lie. So you might be careful and thoughtful about what you want to ask, because you may be used to men who sort of don't kind of answer the question. So you can throw things out that you don't really want to know the answer to. So if your question is, Matthew, how many women are you sleeping with right now? I'm going to tell you the answer. Could be 0, could be 1, could be 2, but I'm going to tell you the exact answer. And I'm even going to get clarification. Well, what do you mean by now? Like in the last month, in the last week, in the last 24 hours, you know, right? Because I would rather that it is a safe, that any interaction is a safe container for truth, right? Because out of truth comes respect for the other to make their own decisions based on their values and their needs. You know?
Yeah. We're all individually assessing what feels good for each of us. And if the questions provide us with some level of comfort, and it's also too of, if we provide the space to actually have a partner that is able to be fully honest and transparent. And we have to acknowledge that a lot of us have grown up in environments and have experienced relationships with a lot of lies. Because as you said, some men, some women don't tell the truth. Sometimes telling the truth is actually is very vulnerable, and we've never done it before, and we're out of practice with it. That's another reason why I'll give, a shout out to the experiences that we curate through We Deepen and have been curating for years, is that they give spaces for people to practice communicating their truth. Because if you've never done it before, it's hard, it's scary. And we all reserve to change our mind at any time. And you might not know the answer in the moment. So it's okay to say, I don't know, can I get back to you? Or to even answer a question and come back the next day and say, hey, I've thought about it more, and I want to keep going. And a lot of times too, it's also, I think, to observe, because I've been in relationships. One of the most recent relationships I was in, there was times where I wanted to talk through things, and he was done. He didn't want to keep talking about it. And he was like, I don't want And for me, hadn't been cleared. So it's important. That's a compatibility thing. And these are why boundaries sometimes I heard someone even reframe the word boundaries recently to principles, which I really like. It's like, what are your own principles? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, what you put up with is what you end up with. So we all get to be in these experiences that allow us to deepen to the spectrum of depth that is most vital for each of us personally to feel as though we're thriving in relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're a very loving person. And I imagine that, in your dating journey, you're meeting tons of amazing women and lovable women. Do you tell me about your process of falling in love versus loving?
My process of falling in love? Well, I've been through that process just a couple of times in my life.
When you say a couple of times, you mean 2?
No, more than that. I mean, I fell in love twice since my divorce. Right? So, but as a data guy, I'm saying I'm not sure that's enough experiences to know exactly what my process is. And I'm a process guy too. I'll do a flow chart of anything once I know where it's going. But, I think the falling in love, or if we reframe that as an openness to fall in love, right? An open and healed heart that's ready to accept it if it should come our way, right? That's a process, right? That's a beautiful process. And my process for that has, to a great extent, has been sort of focused on, I'll call it like a softening. I used that word before, like a softening of my rules or my process or my steps, right? An openness to letting things flow, right? So, gosh, are you asking about what's my process for meeting new people?
No, I was actually asking about your process for falling in love. Like, what's the difference? Yeah. What has you fall in love with one person but not another?
Well, for starters, of course, our hearts have to be ready, right? Our hearts and our minds have to be ready. I mean, this goes to what we've talked about in your relationship coaching too. Is it's good to get help around not just how to meet new people, but how to end relationships and how to heal relationships, because they're completely the same, right? They're completely intertwined. How you've healed from your last relationships is fundamentally a part of how you're able to be falling in love again, right? Mm-hmm. So key. So, and like I said, I fell in love twice in the 4 years since my divorce. And so I've had 2 opportunities to process loss of relationship, right? After my marriage, right? And there's so much good learning around it. So the softening, it sort of, it leads to what I consider as sort of a mantra that guides me, I guess, in the process. And the mantra is expansion of joy, right? What am I interested in? Expansion of joy. I get a message from somebody I've just matched with on a dating app. What are you looking for here? Expansion of joy, right? There's an Abraham Hicks like audio around this. It's going around quite a bit. I've seen lately people sharing. It's beautiful, right? And it's exactly, I watched and I was like, yes, what are you interested in? Joyful happiness. Well, what do you really want? To be more joyful, right? That. So, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to uncomplicate the process so that I am very open and ready to accept and receive beautiful experiences with amazing people and let them deepen. You know, the Facebook, where they set the romantic status, and one of the choices was it's complicated, right? I don't think it needs to be complicated. It can be complex and beautiful and elegant. But it's not complicated if you're focused on the way of being, like, that's really simple, right? And letting beautiful things emerge. So I have my filters, right? And I get to know people, and I really prefer, require like a depth of emotional connection and intellectual connection and intimacy around that. And before I can really like start dating anybody or having a physical intimacy. But it all kind of goes back to, does an experience with this person give me an opportunity to feel more joyful?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have seen that going around on Instagram and Instagram Reels, the audio of the Abraham Hicks that you're referring to. And to me, the falling in love aspect is sort of easy, especially if I'm being intimate with a person and we're having an in-depth intimacy connection. I can get to love. I mean, I can get to love in the moment that I meet you. That in love is more of as that, container continues over time, and it doesn't need to be that significant amount of time. However, then when the falling begins to happen, it's uncomfortable for me. And generally I'm falling for a reason that is that I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it, and it's uncomfortable. And the reason that it's uncomfortable is because usually that information is telling me that this falling it's now coming to a time where it's got to be redirected into a place of rising. So, because we can fall and then we rise back up. And if I don't feel the rising back up is happening after the fall, then I exit. And that's really the easy exit from that, and knowing that's the time for me to go. And as we're, moving into this expansion of offering the matchmaking and relationship coaching or dating coaching, there is, as we spoke about the other day, is yes, I know 100% hands down, if you are unsure about the relationship that you're in, I can help you discover if that is the relationship that you should stay in or you should exit.
Yes.
And we know a ton of people. We have such a large network of high conscious, beautiful, interesting souls. I can definitely introduce you to some really good people. And although I do know I'm genius as a dating coach and a relationship coach, there is that insecurity at times, especially with the external world, if they reflect it back to you, is, but wait, you're single. How are you going to help? And I really appreciated yesterday when we were talking about this. You said, well, yes. Christina, you're self-actualized. You're just because, you're in your own journey does not mean you can't help somebody who is, who's in their own journey as well, because it
doesn't. Yeah. I mean, you remember what I said, not only doesn't it disqualify you, I think it makes you much more qualified, because it goes back to what we were saying before. How we get out of relationships, right, is key, right? And what you've done in your relationships is you have, in a very healthy way, realized that certain relationships aren't the right fit for you, right? And there's this like almost toxic mythology around the one and soulmate and relationships, and And there's so much pressure to be seen as someone who does relationships well, right? And in that, it's such a human thing. And we do this some more than others, but we hold on to relationships that aren't right for us, for either person. We hold on to them because we don't want to fail at relationships, right? And so being coached out of bad relationships, I know I was, right? I had a, when I was married, I had a men's group of 5 men that met every week. And I was essentially coached out of a relationship that wasn't serving me, right? We need that. Sometimes we need that because we hold on to things. So
someone to hold you accountable for your dreams, what you desire, to remind you of that, to reflect that back to you. Yes. I can say that, so We Deepen, it came out of an accelerator program, the concept. So from 2014 to 2016, I ran a curated dating experience called Underground Unattached. Started it in New York City with a motivational speaker, although he doesn't like to be called a motivational speaker, but Sean Derrick, and then a colleague of Esther Perel's, Dr. Sarah Nazaratum. We had formulated what the activities were that we would guide people through this 3-hour experience. It was essentially our first market was the heterosexual market. So it was 20 men, 20 women. Started in New York City, brought it out to Los Angeles. We had over 1,200 people come through. And then I realized after 2 years of running this, that experience, that, wow, this problem is actually so much bigger than this one event can solve. And that problem being that most people didn't grow up observing healthy relationships. The
Yes.
topic is nearly completely neglected from our educational curriculum. And bonds build best over time. So I needed people to see each other again and again and again. And while and have them journey through social and transformational experiences that get them into states of play and joy and fun so they can expand into this more joyous realm, as well as learning relationship skills and meeting each other, having introductions. So fast forward to last night, we are, or even to this moment, over the years, we've built up a network, a nearly 10,000 email list, a SMS list of nearly 2,000 people throughout the United States, mainly in Los Angeles, but includes, as COVID expansion. Now we have many other cities inside of that SMS list. And we sent out a text last night to announce our expansion into private matchmaking and relationship coaching. And this text message received more responses than any event that we promoted, anything else that we've ever done. There was like, yes. I just kept going through, okay, fill out this form, fill out this questionnaire. And it's actually the same questionnaire that Dr. Sarah Nazaratum helped us create in 2014. We sent that questionnaire out and we're getting so many responses. And it's so exciting that now this is my favorite thing. And it comes at a time where, because this is, you're listening to like how I built this, comes at a time where a year ago, I was like, what am I going to do? Like COVID happened, pre-COVID, we raised funding, we had a team, the COVID bomb happened. And I'm like, if this all burns down, what am I going to do with I need a backup plan. I thought about going back to school to get a license in marriage and family therapy and become a psychiatrist. And then I realized, 4 years and $100,000 later was probably not the direction to go for the quick backup plan. And so I went to school, and I've been in school for the past year to become certified as a coach. And the program is ending. And I've just been through intensive amounts of training to be able to support people in this topic. We also have a large network of coaches, even when that text message went out, I got a lot of responses from some coaches and matchmakers themselves and asking like, how can we get involved? We want to support. Let us know. Like,
Yeah.
can I offer my services? Or I have a matchmaking database. How can I pair my matchmaking database with your matchmaking database?
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time to now be in this expansion because there are people out there who, you know, you're border on the introvert versus extrovert spectrum. I do as well.
Hmm.
And there's some people who, you know, to could use support in breaking the ice, whether it's that we're making introductions for you or we're coaching you to what I like to call is gamify your dating journey. It's not to play games, but to have fun when dating.
Yes.
And you're interesting, Matthew, because you're somebody who loves dating apps. And for the most part, a lot of people dread dating apps. So
Well,
to hear you even as stepping forward and being like, you've been coaching entrepreneurs and CEOs for quite some time and now expanding to also be able to support people in their intimate love lives as well. So tell us, how did you bring such great joy into the dating apps?
oh my God, the dating app conversation. I'd love to have it. Before we go forward, I just want to say, first of all, I'm not one bit surprised that your phone blew up when you sent that message out, right? Because we all need what you're offering. We all need it, right? I'm speaking like I know what I'm doing, and we're going to talk about dating apps in a second. I'm going to tell you, what I think about it, but I have no idea. We're always learning, right? We're always learning, and we're just trying to lean into all this with our best self showing, right? And this is where coaching can really, really help. So, of course, your phone is blowing up, and I'll say too. I mean, you're so good at this. I've had the benefit of working with you. I've had the benefit in almost a year of Zoom calls to sort of receive a lot of your coaching without us calling it coaching. We're getting on. We're going to talk about a tech integration. We ended up talking about spent an hour talking about relationships, and it's been such a gift to me. I've so appreciated it that we've got this kind of. It's a really unique working relationship, right? That you and I have, because we've known each other as friends for years, but we started a working relationship. And do you remember the first time we met to have a meeting about how can we work together? About, I don't know, maybe a week before that, I had seen you on a dating app, right? And I had sent you a message saying, hey, I saw your profile on whatever, and just, your profile looks great. Congratulations, right? And then it sat with me, and I thought, wait, that could be interpreted in a couple of different ways. Right, so we started that first meeting, and you looked at me and you said, okay, where do we start? And so we start with clearing something. I'm not flirting with you, right? I'm not flirting with you. Let's have a container here where we can talk about those things, but there's nothing uncomfortable, right? That we're clear, right? Which also...
And I really appreciated that because it was sensitive to me, because if you have seen the reality TV show, anybody listening, that that was released last August of 2021, X-rated on the Peacock Network with Andy Cohen and 3 of my ex-boyfriends as they rated their experience of dating me. The episode is called Relationship Guru Who Can't Find Love. And the second gentleman on there, Zach, who he called me yesterday. I spoke to Zach yesterday by phone, and Zach is the second guy on there, and he had worked at We Deepen. I hired him. He was one of my first hires, and 2 months into it, on New Year's Eve, had dropped the ball to me that, hey, I'm in love with you, and I've been in love with you since the moments that I met you and you interviewed me. Yeah. And then from there, it began this, in-office courting experience for a month and a half. That was, there was one night even that we were in the office that he had said to me, because I was working all the time. He's like, you know, I'm your last hope. And
Oh
there
my.
was a moment because I bet I believed him for a second as he put that into my head. And so, yeah, when when that incident happened, I was like, oh no, like, no, 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 no. Let's not complicate this. No more do I date anybody that I work with, which is rather interesting because I do want to also acknowledge is that as most people, you know, pre-COVID, pre-dating apps, couples mainly met at work because that's where they spent a lot of their time. And it's been interesting because in the workplace, usually in the employee handbook, it typically has no dating. But you got to acknowledge your your teammates, your employees are falling in love, and it's best to actually bring them programs that can support them to have the healthy, meaningful relationships, which is something that We Deepen does as well.
Yeah.
So to consider that, and yeah, and also too is just in the context of work relationships, we have the We Deepen investor deck because we raised funding pre-COVID. Not, I think I don't know if I want to go back and raise funding again. I teeter back and forth between that. However, on our prior investment deck before COVID, it talked about the problem being loneliness, disconnection, isolation, epidemic volumes. The next slide said it's getting worse. And this is again pre-COVID. We had a slide that said it's getting worse. And we highlighted how that remote working was on the rise, and 3.4% of Americans were now working from home. And we saw that 3.4.
Yeah, that was pre.
Yeah,
That was the old deck.
Yeah, that was the old deck. And now it's like 57% plus are working from home. So this is also makes sense for why relationship coaching, dating coaching, and the experiences that we promote and matchmaking are why that text message response was even that much higher. Okay, back to meeting number one of putting that out there, which I really appreciate it.
Well, I feel like I feel like I should sort of clarify though, like, so there's a really interesting book called Polysecure, right? It's Jessica Fern, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in it, what she's addressing is specifically for people who are interested in different forms of ethical non-monogamy, what would be helpful for them to think about and ways of being in relationships so that they can have a secure attachment in a non-monogamous situation, right? It's a very interesting book, but it starts with sort of a recap and explanation of different attachment styles and where they come from. But then it gets into, okay, so you think you might want to practice what she calls consensual non-monogamy. You start with why. What's your why behind it, right? And it's sort of, the analysis falls into sort of two buckets, right? Worth thinking about. One is it's a lifestyle choice, right? It's a lifestyle choice. And the other big bucket is this is an expression of me. It's a natural, authentic expression of who I am, right? And the reading around that in the book is really interesting. But the reason I bring it up is that these things can evolve, right? These things can evolve. How we date, what our intentions are, can evolve. And for me, it evolves in like really going through the exercise of answering those questions that she posed and thinking about what is it that I want, right? What is it that I want? Because although I'm focused on simply expansion of joy and living in the moment and all that, it's helpful to know where you want to go, right? We can't just ignore that, right? It's not helpful. So for me, I found it's a combination. It's a combination. There's certainly an expression of myself in being able to have very, very present emotional connection, intellectual connection with more than one person. Really having beautiful, deep relationships. It's not a zero-sum thing at all for me. I just have found I can do that. And I love that. Right. And so in a lot of ways in my marriage, I felt very trapped is a tricky word, right? But I felt like I was not able to really be myself, right? Because we never had a container for talking about that or anything, right? So there's aspects of it that make me think, yeah, I think I might want to have an open relationship or some kind of form like that. However, where I am right now in dating is a lifestyle choice. Right? I'm deciding right now that that I want to be open to meeting different people, what we call sort of the dating mode, but I want to do it in a very ethical sort of way, like we talked about before. But it's not where I want to be in the long run, right? I don't want to be solo poly in like relationship chaos. I have a desire, a deep, deep desire to have a very deep connection with one person, with a partner, with a life partner who's integrated into my life, who's a big part of my heart, a big part of who I am, integrated into my family, knows my kids know and love her, right? And so these things evolve over time. We don't know where we're going. But I find, and this sort of relates to the question about apps, like how to do apps, right? And it kind of relates to your, like, what you were saying about, like, oh, I didn't ask questions because I thought it was maybe too many questions or all that, right? I think for me, it feels helpful to be playful, right? To be a really good communicator and be honest, but also really be playful. And dating apps, when you're just like matching and just starting to get to know people, being light and playful and fun, for me at least, has been really helpful, right? Some people are very intense, very quickly. What are you looking for? Why are you still here? How long have you been on this app? And you still haven't found somebody? And my answer is no, I have. I have some amazing people in my life. And some of them are my best friends. They're not lovers, they're my best friends, right? Because I'm just open. I'm open to being playful and in that getting to know amazing people. So my suggestion, right? I don't want to should on anybody, but my suggestion is as you experience dating apps and going through it all and chatting with really annoying dudes who are really douchey, and trying not to let it affect your nervous system too much. Be playful, be light, try not to take it too seriously because it's just really early stage stuff.
I love that. And what advice would you give for men who are on dating apps? They're okay. They're listening and they're, gaining some more excitement for using dating apps. However, when I did survey people a few years ago, I walked around Abbot Kinney in Venice, and I did this for the accelerator program as in and had lots of conversations with people in the streets about their dating journey. And most of them would say that they would prefer to meet their significant other in real life, out in the world, at a grocery store, at a restaurant, doing an activity that they love, being at an experience, a festival. How is it that you approach somebody who you find attractive?
Like at the grocery store?
Yeah.
Or a bar?
Yeah.
I don't. I hardly ever do. Right? Partly because I'm a bit of a chicken. Fear of rejection, all that. Real stuff. But also, look, and this goes to why, like, not only dating apps, but like, dating and relationship kinds of experiences like Romance Dojo was. When you set the context of, hi, I'm here to meet people, then everybody knows, right? It's the context, right? And so you can immediately be playful. You can be flirty right away. If I walk up to some, really interesting looking woman in Erewhon I want to be respectful. And I don't know if she's in a relationship, right? I can see she doesn't have a ring, but I don't know that she's open to meeting people. And it's always just struck me as really presumptuous and disrespectful and almost kind of rude. So maybe that's not the case. Maybe, I should be more open and just flirty in public. But it never felt right because the context wasn't there, right? I go to the Romance Dojo event, and the context is everybody's there in one way or another, one form or another, because they're interested in expanding their romantic experience in life, right? Which might mean dating other people, which might mean, anything, but they're interested. And so the context is set. It's safe. I can be myself. I can say, yes, I want to flirt with you. Yes, I want to meet you. But so you don't have that in general public situations. And so this is why I really appreciate, dating apps, is that it allows us to, get right to like a conversation about, I find you attractive. I'd like to get to know you better. Is that okay?
We still need to get you to a Tantra speed date.
Oh,
There's
yes.
they're happening monthly, and they've expanded to, San Diego, Austin, Miami, Los Angeles, Seattle, Amsterdam, Puerto Rico. Lots of Tantra speed dates, Brooklyn, Sacramento, all on the calendar. They're monthly. There's one happening August 20th. Let's send you to Tantra speed date so you get to experience that one
I
too.
would love that. I can see on the calendar how that's blowing up. So of course that tells me that it's really serving people well.
It's definitely, I got an opportunity to participate at Relate Fest, which we produced in Miami this past March, and loved. It's so heartwarming. Everyone's in a puja, meaning two circles inside and out, and you rotate around and you have the opportunity to experience something, a prompt with most people in the room.
Yeah.
So, because I get to philosophize on relationships with you on a weekly basis, and also then buckle down with you and work on the We Deepen business infrastructure. Yeah. Let's also share, we have been going through a bit of a tech transition, and only as of last night, one of the key functionalities that we needed to roll the system out confidently has been addressed and fixed. And I believe we're now ready to tell more people about it and to get the word out that they can go to wedeepen.com, hit on the calendar, become a member, sign up, create a profile, and they can RSVP for experiences, which then when you RSVP, you'll be able to see the other people who are also going to that experience or thinking about going to that experience. And a pop-up will arrive on your screen with a link to purchase your tickets. And that link will also include a We Deepen member exclusive promo code to use at checkout. Save a little bit of money as all these experiences get networked together. And you also get an email that will arrive just in case you run out of time in that moment to purchase your tickets. You'll get an email in your inbox to make sure that you go back and get your tickets. And we will keep populating that events calendar with experiences that are intended to help you have thriving relationships.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's next level for sure. I mean, you're such a force of nature as an entrepreneur that just keeps going and building, and your tenacity with making this system just right for our community has been really wonderful to see. And yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's a beautiful confluence or combination of a curated calendar, right? Curated, thoughtful calendar of amazing, incredible events. It's not just Eventbrite where anybody can put anything up. It's We Deepen curated. It's a combination of a calendar and an opportunity to build community around that, right? To build community around that. And we can have our WhatsApp chat group and all that, but this, what you're building and what Circle is for We Deepen is I think a real great opportunity for people to connect much more deeply with each other and to share experiences, and get to know each other and add value to one another and build a community. So I'm really excited that it's ready.
It's ready. It's ready.
It's ready.
This is like the pre-beta. So go sign up, create a profile. There's a membership directory. You'll be able to see people in, essentially we had initially a plan to roll out to 5 cities over the next 5 years. That was beginning in 2020 before COVID bomb hit. And after the bomb, we started doing live or online events. We dispersed and we added multiple cities and regions so quickly and people within those markets. But the one common thread that everybody has is that growth comes first. That's it. If you look at wedeepen.com and you hit the about and it's hit the values, you'll see guidance. Guidance is an acronym for our values. And everybody is aligning with growth comes first, being unoffendable, being in an intuitive flow, desiring to share with one another, to operate a sense of free will, to nurture yourself, self-discovery, and the knowingness that our wholeness depends on relationships.
Yeah.
So tying us all together there, definitely go check out that calendar. It's in beta. If you're interested in private matchmaking, that text message at the top of wedeepen.com, there is an announcement bar that has a phone number. That phone number is 388-398-0784. Again, that's 388-398-0784. If you miss it here, go to the top of wedeepen.com, text count me in. And if you're interested in private matchmaking, send us a message about that specifically, or relationship coaching, or joining our database to be matched with others, and we'll get you looped in. Also, this is coming at the perfect timing because I am in Austin right now, but I'm traveling to Los Angeles mid-September for the 8th annual biohacking conference, Dave Asprey's conference. Dave Asprey is actually going to be on the podcast next week. So after you listen to this episode, make sure you come back next week because we'll get Dave Asprey there, the godfather of biohacking, and I get to dive into his relational life and why he decided that he wanted to include a quote unquote singles event at his 8th annual biohacking conference. Because to me, it's sort of revolutionary to have a professional conference with 2,000 people and to take 200 of them and offer them the opportunity to meet each other for the purpose of dating and exploring relationships. So I'll be out there. It's that September 15th through the 17th. The dating experience is that night, September 16th. I'll be co-facilitating that with Ken Page, a psychotherapist and the founder of Deeper Dating. Look at that. We Deepen and Deeper Dating coming together in collaboration. Matthew.
Yes.
How was your first podcast?
Oh my God. Thank you for making me feel so welcome.
You're welcome. I was so excited. I've been wanting to have you on here. Thank you for coming in and share. Is there any final words that you would like to speak?
Oh, goodness. Love yourself. Trust yourself. That's the key, I think, in dating and relationships is know where your heart is. Learn to love and trust yourself. And be open to growing. You know? And always, always, always clear communication.
Always, always clear communication. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Even if it's that I don't know what to say, but something's happening and I'll share it too soon. And also, I think it's important too. Sometimes we've lost the art of writing, like handwriting letters to each other. And sometimes if that's your best way of communicating, then consider bringing back the old-fashioned days of writing letters. I do it often. And I highly recommend that as a way of communicating with your lovers as well.
And I'll add, like, sometimes we don't speak our truth or ask the questions because we're afraid it's going to scare the other person away, right? Right? Lean into it. Be truthful, be communicative. And if it turns out that what you're saying, how you answer their question, the questions you ask, don't align with them, doesn't work for them, then great. You've just learned that it's not a good fit, right?
So true. I definitely learned that lesson the hard way years ago. Ask all the questions, say it all, share it all, that's, when Brene Brown first started talking about vulnerability, I'm like, oh yeah, I can go in and this is what happened in my childhood and I had this and this. And then I learned over time that, vulnerability is the act of sharing real time what I'm experiencing, what's happening for me. And that's the edge. Definitely go in and touch the edge, because you want a deep relationship. I wish I could say that's innate, and love is all innate, and it is pure, but we've been conditioned so much that there's so many layers to just remove and peel back and peel back to even get to that.
And the foundation gets built from first communication. The foundation for respect and trust and safety gets built from the very beginning. So even if, like, I love a good love at first sight story, and sometimes that happens, but generally we fall in love, or I like the term dance into love. Like, the falling thing is, kind of feels a little bit dance into love.
I love that.
We do that over time, whatever you call it. We do it over time. And so we might feel like it's okay to make shortcuts or not be completely open and truthful and honest and like, oh no, we're just dating. We're just getting to know each other. It's just a first date. There's a foundation that gets built from the very beginning. So I would say never underestimate the importance of starting from the right place.
Thank you all. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I appreciate you tuning in to another episode of Deep In with Christina. Definitely go check out wedeepen.com, click on that calendar, complete a profile. Know that you are in the early stages of something blooming that is super special. So get inside of there now. That's your invitation, and consider it an invitation. You have my contact information, see at wedeepen.com. Find me on Instagram, Christina Weber. Send me a message. Let's connect. Actually, even the best way, the most impressive way, is go inside of the community and send me a message there. Okay, thank you all for tuning into this episode. And until next time, enjoy. Bye for now.